I think it's recording.
It says recording, so I think we can go. Wait,
is this recording now?
My screen says recording on it right now, so.
All right, we are good.
Hello.
Oh my God. Okay, so let me remember my intro. I think I said something like, "This is Daniel Bernal, and you're watching." No, now I just hear the Disney Channel.
This is a new era. This is just you and me.
Yeah, that's true.
Divine Orbit X Fortunate Fire coming at you through the YouTube or wherever you're watching this.
You should introduce yourself too.
Oh,
this is my channel. People might know me.
I'm new here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Drew. I live in Chicago. I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest near Olympia, Washington. I'm a student astrologer and aspiring anthropologist. More on that at a later date. And I have been studying astrology for a year. I, like Daniel, am a student of Hellenistic astrology primarily. Although, of course, we live in modern times, so we're like working with some modern material too.
Hi, Pluto.
Hi, Pluto. Yeah, hey, Pluto's going to be super relevant for what we talked about Lizzo, I think. And I'm a Scorpio rising, so I used to think that Pluto was like my jam, and now as a traditional astrologer, I kind of had to like abandon Pluto, which is sad.
It's your sub jam. That's like a lesser jam.
Mars primary
it's
jam.
It's a jelly.
No seeds, please. Anyway, that's me. I met Daniel through Instagram, through Divine Orbit. What's your Instagram handle?
Divine Orbit Astrology. Links in the comments below, or in the description below.
And I'm Fortunate Fire Astro, so you can find me on Instagram as well. Now that I have a real Instagram, it's budding and new, and you should come follow me.
Great first post today, first horoscope about the nodes and Cancer and Capricorn.
Yeah, well, it's super important. I mean, this is maybe like a slight digression from what we actually want to talk about, but
that's okay on this channel.
That's true. It's your channel, so you make
my channel.
With Mars going through Cancer, and we're going to have the eclipses coming up in Cancer, or the eclipse coming up in Cancer. So that's...
oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Forgot about that.
Preview time. Like, once Mars goes into Cancer, we're going to start, like, seeing some of the themes that are going to become, like, really, really important in June and July. So that's why I decided to post about it and go check it out.
All that stuff won't even wrap up till fall. It's just going to be all summer long.
Yeah.
The Cancer Capricorn show.
Yeah. What house is that for you? You're 2nd and 8th, right?
2nd and 8th. So money, management. How about you?
For me, it's the 3rd and 9th, which is really exciting for me because astrology is a 9th house topic, and I'm getting super into that. So having an eclipse in my 9th house will be pretty cool, I think. And then, I mean, the 3rd house stuff is like Saturn's been there for a while, so we know what's up with that. Yeah, so if you know where Saturn is in your chart, you can look at that and see like the other side of what's going to be happening in Cancer, and so you can just like put those two things together.
There'll be links in the description for how to calculate your rising sign if you don't know it. It's different than your sun sign in most cases, and a link to what each of the 12 houses mean. So if you know what sign Capricorn's in, you can look at the table and see where that is in your chart.
Perfect. You want to throw up Lizzo's chart?
Wait, did we say how we met?
Oh, yeah, well, I slid into your DMs.
That's right. You got lost.
I got lost, and then we started texting, and then we realized we had a psychic connection. So
we are the psychic twins.
Hi, we're the psychic twins.
They're us. Us.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the one with all the Gemini, though, so I feel like you get, like, you're like a twin and a half, and I'm maybe, like, another half of a twin, because I don't have a Gemini.
Oh, sad.
I know. It's okay. I make up.
Oh, we share. We're sharing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's.
Should I throw the chart up there? We're going to talk about Lizzo today.
Lizzo.
And now cue the footage of the concert that I went to on Sunday. my God, that was a magical night. So surprise, we're going to do her chart in this video.
It's actually a really exciting chart. We initially thought that she was Virgo rising, and now we found out that she's Leo rising, but Leo rising works just fine. I love Leo.
Maybe even better, yes.
Leo loves to be loved, so we're here to talk about Leo rising Lizzo.
Here we go, taking over the screen. It won't let me make it bigger than half. So
okay, well, a quarter would be fine.
So we have to share.
We have to. Well, that's okay. I can just be invisible. Speaking of things that are big and things that are bold, how about Leo rising with a Taurus stellium in the 10th house? Want to talk about that?
Yes. Oh, and Jupiter in the 10th. Okay, see, we're going to be comparing it, I feel like, the whole time to the Virgo ascendant, but with the Leo ascendant, Jupiter in the 10th, I'm just like,
yeah,
queen.
Okay, so Daniel, what's special about the Sun and Jupiter in this chart? And do you want to point to the Sun and Jupiter for people who might not know the glyphs?
Oh yes.
Okay, so what's special about the Sun in this chart is that it's the ruling planet of the Ascendant. Daniel, do you want to help explain what the Ascendant is?
So when you were born, if you had looked out onto the eastern horizon, whatever you saw there is what is rising. So it unfortunately probably wasn't the constellation Leo, because we are using tropical astrology, the tropical zodiac, which is a little bit shifted off from the actual stars. But the tropical zodiac corresponds to the seasons, and that's the system of astrology that we're applying. And so we say that Leo was on the horizon. And you can see this AS represents that ascendant. And if you drew a line straight across the other side, that would be like the horizon. So everything on this side is above the horizon.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that the Sun is the ruling planet of Leo is because Leo is just after the summer solstice, so we associate it with things that are bright. The other planet that rules one of the solstice or the summer signs is Cancer, is the moon in Cancer, so the other source of light. That's just a little extra context. But here we're looking at the Sun. So when we have the Ascendant, we can look to the ruling planet of that sign, which in this case, like we said, is the Sun, for extra description about the Ascendant itself. And the Ascendant represents the self. It represents the individual. It's basically where you come into this life from, and like the energy that precedes you when you walk it around.
So the solar energy is so Lizzo. She just becomes a center of attention, and like you just gravitate towards her, and just that confidence that she radiates, and just that whole and being the 10th house. So the 10th house is, if you look at this as like the horizon, it is directly above. So it's like literally the highest pinnacle that you can achieve. She does so when she walks into a room with her personality. It is, yeah, this chart is definitely feels more her core personality. I think the other chart we were looking at was like, yeah, that could describe some of her career things, but I think this one's a little bit more core. We're going to talk about some of her persona, but just like, yeah, like it's, I grab it, but just like, yeah, like it's, I gravitated more and more towards her until I was like, I was sucked in. All the people that I knew were like, this is a thing. And I was like, okay.
I love that you use the word gravitate. Because that is such a Taurus word, and Lizzo has 3 planets in Taurus, and like potentially her midheaven. We're pretty sure her midheaven's in Taurus too, and it's her 10th house, so it's like what everybody sees. So yeah, do you want to dive in and talk about Taurus a little bit with that idea of gravity? Yeah, so Taurus is about physical appreciation. That's like where I go to when I think about it. It's about physical appreciation and physical security. It has to do with survival, and like anything that's like super material that has to do with survival, like your flesh, for example. So, for example, eating is a very Taurus act, because it's what you do to like physically sustain your body and like replenish your flesh. So that's like the deep philosophical version of Taurus. But then as far as like meeting a Taurus person, or like some Taurus traits that you might expect, Do you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, so being very secure and not being moved by anyone else. So like Taurus is a bull, and bulls are very slow unless they're going in a direction they want to go in. And they can really build momentum, and you're not going to knock them off their path. They're going to knock you off your path. And
there's a great lyric for that, actually.
Yes, I love it that you're ready with the lyrics.
Where is that? Shoot, am I going to lose it? Something about, I think it's in tempo, of course, right?
Of course it's in tempo.
It's something about like getting started and like not being able to stop or something like that. Maybe I'll find it later, but that's totally
we can superimpose it on the screen. We can put it in post-production.
Yeah, we can do that. She actually sings about some of the themes that you're talking about, which I think is like really cool. You can actually find the astrology in her words. Yeah,
and it's like, is she singing that because she's a Taurus, or because she knows she's a Taurus? Because we've also found quite a lot of evidence that she is super into astrology, which is so cool.
So Lizzo, if you're watching this, we love you, and you should share our video.
And we'd love to do a reading with you on this channel. Oh my God.
Yes, totally. Yeah, so Taurus, 10th house. Yeah, it's in the 10th house. So
her 10th house of high esteem, her career, what she's known for, her public persona is that Taurian bull, noble, natural, just like out there, raw elements kind of persona. Even though her like, if you peel that back a little bit and you get to know her personally, that Leo would shine through a little bit more, a little more charismatic, a little more dynamic. That Taurus really is just like, bah, compared to Leo, which is a little bit more regal, I would say.
Yeah, I think one thing about the Taurus that she has, it's like, it's with Jupiter is one of the planets that's in Taurus, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So it's not even just stubbornness. I feel like which is like a common Taurus thing that people say about Tauruses, is that they're stubborn. There's also like a generosity to it.
Generously stubborn, yes.
Generously stubborn. Jupiter is like a philosopher and a teacher, so it's like I'm gonna be stubborn in a way that like has some kind of like bigger idea behind it of like improving the world or something like that.
Yeah, something that I loved about Lizzo's Instagram too is like she will go there and just push and push. If she knows that she's making you uncomfortable with her like raw natural beauty, she will continue until you are gone or red in the face. It's just like that, bam.
Right, yeah. So a lot of the photo shoots that she's done are like nudes, right? And they're different. They're different from like the kinds of nudes that you see because of like the body that she has, and that's like part of her messaging. So I think it's so fitting, like you've been saying, that she has Taurus in the 10th house of public image, because it's like just putting yourself out there, like you said, no bull, no BS. So I think it's amazing that this shows through the chart. Not surprising.
Thick is beautiful, y'all, and she is here to tell us that. That's exactly what's happening. Also, because Mercury is conjunct, not as closely as I would like, but we've got Mercury right next to that Jupiter there too. So Mercury being the mouthpiece or the voice of the rest of the planets, Mercury is kind of like, hey, Lizzo, here's the mic. This is what you need to be focusing on and like spreading to the world.
With that Mercury, she has such an earthy tone to her voice, doesn't she?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
So I feel like that, and it's with Jupiter, which is like the benefic, the great planet in this chart, that's like going to improve
the warmth. Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
because Taurus isn't necessarily a warm sign.
No.
It's an earth sign, so it's more cool, more grounded. So that sun and that Jupiter there really heat things up. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I think. It's bringing that Leo energy directly to her career and her public image. When it's so interesting, Lizzo does not have any planets in fire signs. So it's like, I think you actually mentioned this when we were kind of talking about it. If you look at the planets that she's got, it's almost exclusively earth and air.
Mm-hmm.
which definitely, I think like she is not your average pop star. She is someone who is more sophisticated and more raw and kind of like concrete. Like she's not like when she does things that's complicated. So like one of the things she does is she plays classical flute. Which is just like amazing, and what other pop stars can really say that? But she incorporates it into a way that's like beautifully complex, but also just like simple part of the music, and then you like move on, and you're like really feeling the beat. And so it's flute. It's not jazz flute, but it's like flute just like dropped into whatever genre of music she's doing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about her is that she doesn't really. There was an episode of the podcast Switched on Pop about Lizzo and how she. One of the criticisms that was made by a Pitchfork article about her most recent album was that it like doesn't have any genre, and so it's like not. They were saying like it's like hard to listen to, or it's not unified, or something like that. They can have their opinions, but I think it's interesting that she is so. Like genreless in a way. She's very specific about like referencing certain genres. Like every song will have something that it's drawing on, but each one is different. And I think that variety is something that we can see with her Venus, which is the planet that has to do with the arts. So Lizzo has Venus in Gemini right there. Gemini is, well, let's start with Venus. Venus is it's the planet that has to do with the arts and
desire,
harmony.
what's desirable.
Yeah, desire in general. Yeah, absolutely.
Femininity.
Right. Thank you for filling in the blanks there. I was like kind of drawing a blank myself. I was wanting to talk about Gemini. Gemini is the sign about two-ness. So it's traditionally called a double-bodied sign, which means that there's like more than one thing going on. And Gemini is an air sign, so it's about ideas and the intellect. So it's about more than one idea going on at the same time. So you can kind of see how that plays out in her interest in multiple genres, I think.
Yes. And it's like, it's that idea of two-ness or like multiplicity where it's like, these are all true. These are all beautiful. Venus kind of giving the stamp of approval on like multiple ideas. And I think that that's something that there's this power that Lizzo harnesses to like create possibility where you thought there wasn't any before. And just like, it's like a chain of inspiration that keeps going.
Yeah. There's so much, back to what you were saying about how she plays the flute and how she's just very skilled. I kind of think about that with her Virgo moon, because Virgo is a very skilled sign. It has to do with, it's another Mercury sign. So it's about like quick thinking, and being skilled, especially with your hands.
Small details, like fine movements. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I think that definitely shows through in her chart as well.
For sure. So like the other thing to note about her Venus in Gemini is it's in the 11th house, which is more about kind of friendships, social networks, social groups. So I think about like how she is really putting not just the mainstream, but also leveraging pop culture, leveraging memes, leveraging things that are, just her collaborations with other artists, I think is really important. And the 11th is the 5th house from the 7th house of partners. So she really leverages her partner's creativity a lot in her work. And I would say like one of the biggest things she does is elevate the empowerment of women in a way that is, it's not specific. It's like, it just like celebrates every woman and celebrates like the most baddest bitches and like the thick women, and just like it is kind of a specific brand, but it like a lot of different people can fit into that.
I'm remembering her song "Boys." I mean, I know you're talking about women, but it's sort of the idea. I have to make it about men, right?
She talks about boys a lot.
When she's talking about like all the different kinds of boys that she likes, I think that goes to what you're saying about like accepting everybody, and that Gemini 11th house is totally like I'm accepting every kind of friend or relationship that I could have, and I want to like get out there and make connections in that way. I love that. Oh, and this is just like a random. I'm looking at lyrics from Juice. And it just brought me back to Taurus. Like Taurus is important here, so we should like definitely keep talking about Taurus. She said, like at the very beginning of the song, she says, "No, I'm not a snack at all. Look, baby, I'm a whole damn meal."
Yes.
How Taurus is that?
Yes. Taurus does not want the snack. Like, get your snacks out of here.
That's so funny. And then,
Virgo would be more the snack.
Virgo is definitely a snack. Virgo is petite,
refined. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, back to Venus for a hot second. So Venus is square the nodes in this chart, and I thought that was, so the nodes. Let's see if I can draw. We've got the lunar nodes here on this axis, and directly square to that, we find Venus here. And that is in a position of farthest distance away from the nodes. And that can really be represented in a person's natal chart by like feeling kind of othered or isolated or dissociated. And I really put that with that, like, there's been such a stigma for, I don't know, millennia about like women and larger women, maybe not millennia, maybe it's more of a recent cultural thing, but that stigma of like, I'm a woman and I'm not deemed, or any person, I'm not deemed beautiful by social standards. I feel like she is really bringing some attention to that with her voice and saying like, no, this is desirable. But every person who goes through that journey has to start somewhere within that society that's telling you you're not beautiful, you don't meet these standards, and so I'm sure that there was some of that led to the amazing messages that she has now that are so resonant, kind of fighting through that dissociation with beauty, or with that that power that the nodes can grant.
But then when we find a square, which is to the nodes, which is like equally far from each of the nodes, it's like that, like the meanings of that planet become an important stepping stone for you to move from, if you want to think about it as a progression from your south node to your north node, then in this case, Venus is going to be really important for doing that. So the meaning of Venus in this chart is it's in the 11th house, like we said, and it's in Gemini, and Venus is the appreciation and pleasure planet, and it's in Gemini, so it's about appreciating ideas and different ways of having ideas, and it's in the 11th house of friends, like we were talking about. So bouncing ideas off of other people, and making acquaintances and alliances to put a message out there. Ultimately leading toward the 8th house of like what's important to other people. So I think I love how you describe the 8th house there, because a lot of times people will talk about the 8th house as just like other people's money, but I think what you kind of alluded to is that there is like a deeper meaning of the 8th house, which is just like what is important to others, and I think that's interesting in the context of her career. So glad we brought up the nodes. We didn't talk about the moon on the south node though.
So important. There's a lot that she talks about in terms of valuing yourself. And the moon is something that brings words to your emotions or words to your experience, to your consciousness. And being at her concert was just like I felt like she was speaking directly to me. And her messages were all about how do you value yourself? How do you put yourself first in a way that is empowering, magical? Like, yes, love is important. Yes, you can find soulmates in other people, but you are your own soulmate. If you don't love yourself, who can you love? And really that like put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. Like if you really say you value yourself, like indulge yourself, treat yourself, put your needs above like people who are not going to like respect you back. There's a lot of that like valuing of the self.
Yeah. And so like in terms of that being with the moon south node, I almost think about like the south node as being something that like you have an understanding of already. But the understanding that you have almost like gets in your way. But at the same time, you can use that as like wisdom for other people and like telling them why that lesson is important. So with the moon in Virgo, it's like there's a lot of wisdom of like emotional perfectionism in a way. And so I think that goes with what you're saying of like being your own center. And like I don't need to be such an emotional perfectionist, or I don't need to like change my feelings for somebody else. Like I am my own person. So I think that maybe that is something about the South Node too. Also the Pluto, like the Pluto aspect, that's kind of jumping around now, but I feel like that's also related to what we're talking about with like self-value, because it's opposite the sun.
And directly opposite Jupiter too.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So as the Scorpio in the room, maybe I should say something about Pluto.
Please.
Although I will say for the record that I am part of the Pluto and Sagittarius generation. So don't have that Pluto Scorpio, unfortunately.
This is where I can say that I was born a month after Lizzo.
Yeah.
And so most of our placements are the same in terms of the sign. But not most, but like I've got Venus and Gemini as well. And it's so weird to like see this chart as like, oh yeah, I recognize those things, but they're in completely different places and with a few important different configurations. Like my Jupiter's at 19 degrees Taurus, so it's not directly opposite my Pluto, and so I can only imagine like that intense, very intense opposition for Lizzo. But yeah, I'm basically Lizzo.
You basically are. I think we've definitely established that. If nobody gets anything else from this video, that's it.
Okay, anyway, tell us about Pluto in Scorpio.
Yeah, so because Pluto's a generational planet, we're not really going to talk so much about the sign that it's in, but we can talk about the house that it's in and the aspects that it's making. But before we do that, let's just talk about Pluto in general. My biggest keyword for Pluto is enough. So this could take like a variety of like there's a variety of contexts that you could say enough in like a Pluto experience. So one Pluto experience could be like you've been in like a super intense relationship with somebody and you're ready for it to be done, and that's really hard to do. But once you get to the point of doing it, it's like, nope, that's enough. Like I've had enough. This experience has run its course. I'm ready for something new. So that gets the idea of Pluto being the planet of transformation. A lot of times people will talk about it being like the phoenix rising from the ashes, because it's like you have this experience that literally burns you. It reduces you to ashes, and then the only way that you can come out of that is up from the ashes. So yeah, that idea of enough. And like another way you could think about it is if like in this chart, for example, the sun being opposite Pluto and Jupiter being opposite Pluto, it's almost like this opposition, which is what this 180-degree angle is. It's like you're not enough is something that you would go through with this kind of aspect, because Pluto is like, it's giving this idea that there's something missing, there's like a deeper experience to be had, and I'm not getting it because I'm over here on the side of the sun and Jupiter and Mercury rather than with Pluto. Does that make sense to you, Daniel? Am I explaining that well?
Yeah. I think it's almost like an anchor too, for this chart being in the fourth house. It's like this anchor of intensity that I think, like, I've observed Lizzo, like her like rise to where she is right now on this like big stage. Part of me wonders if she has time to like feel like this is enough for me. Like her public career is just like so fast and intense right now. It's like, when does she just like chill, and when does she just like say, all right, I've had enough, time for me. Like I see her just like burning the candle on both ends. And I wonder how much of that, like Jupiter is already a planet that is so much about excess. And when you pair that with that intensification of Pluto, it's like, you don't know when to stop until you've like burnt out.
Yeah, but then oh yeah, that's such a good point. With Pluto being in the fourth house, it's like there might even be a discomfort with not being in the spotlight, because like it's opposite the 10th house, which is like full of all this great stuff and like the ruler of her ascendant. And then in the fourth house, you have Pluto, which is certainly not a comfortable energy, especially in terms of the aspect that it's making. So I don't know. Are there any timing techniques that we could use to say like when some of these issues of like being in the public versus like having a private life in the fourth house would when this would come up?
Great question. If you want to find out the timing techniques that we continue to go on to use to describe when these things happen in Lizzo's chart, you will need to stay tuned for part 2. And that will also include some special information about her relationship with Prince. Catch more on Divine Orbit Astrology on Instagram and Fortunate Fire Astro, and make sure that you are on my mailing list at Divine Orbit, and check out my website for more information about consultations and daily horoscopes. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next cycle.